Andy seemed like he was starting to let his anger get the best of him, so we're going to give him a break and we're going to give Joe a chance here. Joe is my least favorite character to play as, but it's not because he's terrible, it's just because out of all four of them, he has the fewest options. The female enemies in this stage can hit you from a bit farther than most, so it's best not to tackle them head on. This is especially important when Joe has the Wild Wolf power, because when Joe has the Wild Wolf power, his attacks reach not so far. That could have gone much better. Right here is the first really difficult area in the game. Even if you manage to take out the motorcycle enemy early like I did just there, there's still a whole ton of people swarming you. And just like Andy, Joe doesn't have much in the way of defense. He does have a special skill he can use while blocking, but that wouldn't be very useful here because they're coming at me from all sides. But with this section over with now, it's mostly smooth sailing from here on. Right here the game introduces what I'm fairly certain is supposed to be the tough enemy, but it doesn't quite work out that way. He does have more health and we can't grapple him, but he's very easy to attack directly. You can also kinda stun him in place by using your projectile while you attack. He's too big to be pushed back, but he's too slow to stop you. Regardless, the game continues trying to treat him as a tough enemy for the next couple of stages, which results in some slightly unbalanced difficulty. Now don't get me wrong, when these big guys appear in a group, then it's a problem, but you usually face them one-on-one because the game assumes you're going to have trouble. That attack right there was a special combo we can chain into right after we block. It's not so useful in a group of enemies, but it's a very effective counter against bosses. And that is exactly why we can't throw those guys. You can see here how the design was intended to be challenging. They have these female characters with the longer range, and then they have a tough guy coming in right behind them, but you finish off the female characters long before he gets there. And right here I died to one of the easiest enemies in the game. There we go. We are nearing 50,000 points though, so we'll get that life back pretty quickly. The sudden influx of these big enemies doesn't hinder the game's pacing too much, but it is noticeable. Though in just a couple stages they get replaced with an actually tough enemy that's fairly difficult to deal with even on its own, so it's not like we have to deal with this for long. As I'm about to show off right here though, you can deal with these guys pretty quickly if you figure out how to stun them. That's kind of satisfying to do. Right here is where the stage starts to pick back up again when they realize they can start throwing more enemies at you in addition to the big guys. Because you figured them out by now. It's not that this stage is bad, they do introduce two new enemies, it's just that one of them is challenging and the other really is not. And here's some meat we could have used if I didn't die in such an avoidable place. I really like this part right here because they throw pretty much every agile enemy at you at once, and this game's at its best when you can fend off a whole bunch of enemies at the same time. Everything about the mechanics just kinda clicked right there, you know? Now we have to face off with Michael Max, who is definitely the easiest boss in the entire game. In spite of his boxing gloves, which would have you assume he's a close-range attacker, both of his attacks are long-range. So the winning strategy here is really just to run right up to him and punch him in the face. He has absolutely no way to counter. This whole stage is just kind of a really weird drop in the game's pacing and design, but it does pick back up again immediately after. And because of that, we're going to give Joe another chance. Joe didn't really have his chance to shine here. Michael and the big enemies are clearly supposed to be the most difficult things in this stage, and they're really just not hard at all. Ironically though, this place did also have the first two difficult fights in the game.